Good evening and welcome to the council meeting for Monday, November the 3rd, 2025. Please rise for the playing of the national anthem and a moment of reflection.
Oh, Canada.
Please be seated. At this time, I will look to Councillor Mako to read the land acknowledgement.
The land on which council meets today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, Attawandaron, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many Indigenous peoples, made up of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement should remind us of our responsibility to ensure the dish, the territories on which we live and work, is never emptied, and that we take care of the land and its inhabitants in a way that ensures its future sustainability.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mako. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the council meeting for November the 3rd, 2025. I want to thank everybody who's tuning in tonight. Pleased to start by sharing a few highlights from the last couple of weeks and spotlighting the incredible work happening across the community. I had the pleasure of attending the grand reopening of 1 Hour Signs at their new location at 626 Welland Avenue. At this new location, the owner, Patrick Wasiak, has been able to bring both 1 Hour Signs and Reskin Wrap Studio under one roof. They provide top quality custom signage for businesses in the Niagara region, and through Reskin, they provide vehicle wraps and custom wraps for all surfaces. I made sure to point out in the last election, my wife very much wanted to wrap the van with my face, and I told her that was a terrible idea. We both agreed that perhaps neither of our driving skills were high enough that we want to be driving around with my face on the vehicle cutting people off in traffic. So always think twice before you get your vehicle skinned. With that, it's a fantastic business, so congrats to Patrick and the team on the new space and for continuing to invest in St. Catharines. Last week, I joined the city's economic development team at the Ontario Marine Council's industry panel hosted in partnership with the Economic Club of Canada. The event brought together marine sector leaders to discuss the future of Ontario's marine economy, from innovation in shipping and port operations to the evolving workforce and sustainability opportunities ahead. As a city with deep roots along the Great Lakes, St. Catharines recognizes the essential role this sector plays in connecting our economy to global markets. Our team remains committed to fostering partnerships that strengthen Ontario's position as a leader in marine logistics, trade, and innovation. I will also say I got to mark the occasion. David Patterson was receiving an award, so I got a picture with David Patterson just a couple of days before he and the American ambassador started shouting at each other. I'm glad folks enjoyed that. I very much enjoyed it after the fact. I think David Patterson's a wonderful man. So, 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of attending the St. Catharines Boxing Club's 30-year anniversary of the McGibbons Gloves boxing event along with Councillor Lindell. The event was a sellout. It was a night full of great bouts featuring young up-and-coming boxers, and I want to thank Bruce Greenlaw and the St. Catharines Boxing Club for the invite. Be sure to check out their next event, the Niagara Legends Boxing Show, that will take place on Friday, March 27th, 2026. On October the 25th, I was pleased to represent the city at the Lincoln and Welland Regiment's 81st Bergen Op Zoom commemoration at the Lake Street Armory. This was after last year I had the very, very wonderful opportunity to represent the city at the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Bergen Op Zoom in Bergen Op Zoom with the regiment and the Regimental Association. This has become something very important to me and very meaningful, having been able to walk the battlefields where those young men many of them gave their lives, and some of whom never returned, so I appreciate the opportunity. And I will speak more about remembrance in a few minutes when we talk about what's coming up in the city. I want to thank all the residents who joined myself and Budget Chair Don Dodge in October for our Budget Telephone Town Hall and for the Budget Open House. Your questions and feedback were greatly appreciated as we continue to discuss the budget readoption process. There is still time to provide your feedback to myself and council. You can email mayor@stcatharines.ca or budget@stcatharines.ca or your individual councilors to provide feedback with your thoughts. Last Thursday, I had the pleasure of attending the St. Catharines Sports Hall of Fame ceremony where we honored 5 remarkable individuals whose achievements have made St. Catharines proud and have also left a lasting mark on the city's athletics and sporting culture. Congratulations to the class of 2025, which includes Doug Fass, John Haney, Gemma Kramer, Chris Leach, and Melissa Murphy St. Onge. Your stories will continue to inspire athletes, fans, and the whole city for generations to come. And thank you to Deputy Mayor Bill Phillips for all the time he puts in with the Hall of Fame committee. This morning, I joined Jillian's Place and community partners at City Hall to raise the Wrapped in Courage flag in recognition of Women Abuse Prevention Month. Today's flag is a reminder that we all have a role to play in ending gender-based violence and supporting survivors. I want to give a sincere thank you to Jillian's Place for the life-changing work that they do every day, providing safety, shelter, and support to those who need it. And I will say thank you to this council for making the decision to support their capital campaign last year as they continue to expand their services. It's unfortunate that the expansion is needed, but I'm glad that our council made the decision to support them by waiving some of the costs. A gentle reminder, tomorrow morning from 7 to 9 a.m., you can join us at Market Square for Jillian's Place annual Wrapped in Courage pancake breakfast in support of their services. I have been told there will be whipped cream and sprinkles as well. On Friday, I had the chance to visit Dr. Alex Agnino and the team at Core Health Collective, located at 63 Ontario Street, right here in our downtown. Core Health Collective offers a modern, integrated approach to health with services like chiropractic care, physiotherapy, massage therapy, naturopathy, holistic nutrition, psychotherapy, and personal training. It's great to hear Alex's homegrown success story. He's a DM grad, became a chiropractor, and now co-founder of Core Collective. Thank you for choosing to invest in St. Catharines, and best wishes for the continued success. And then on to our upcoming events. So there are a number of events related to Remembrance Day and Remembrance Week. Branch 350 will be having their ceremony on Sunday, November 9th at the Port Dalhousie Legion. The service at the Cenotaph in Port Dalhousie will begin at approximately 11 a.m. Also on November 9th, the Polish Legion will host their Remembrance Day service, beginning with a parade from the Polish Club at 9:30 a.m., followed by Mass at 10 a.m., and a Cenotaph service at 11:30 a.m. Then on November the 11th, Branch 24 will host their Remembrance Day ceremony. The parade will begin at City Hall and will march to the Cenotaph at Memorial Park, where a service will take place beginning at about 10:45. Also on November 11th, Branch 138, the Meriton Legion, will host a ceremony beginning at 10:30 a.m. With a further ceremony to follow. I will say, for those who are coming to the downtown location, we generally muster in front of City Hall at around 10. We lay wreaths, there is the bugle, and then we parade march to the Cenotaph in Memorial Park on St. Paul Street West. And finally, for me, I want to invite everyone in the St. Andrews Ward to join myself and Councillors Kushner and Harris for the Town Hall STC event on November the 26th. It will be held at the St. George and St. Mercurius Coptic Orthodox Church, located at 118 Glenridge Avenue from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. We hope to see you there for a great chance to connect and discuss what matters most to you. Sign up and learn more at stcatharines.ca/townhallstc. And because I read that one, I was remiss and I forgot to mention the fact that Councillors Williamson, Mako, and I attended the Town Hall STC in Port Dalhousie at the Grantham Optimist Club on Wednesday. And it was a very well-attended event. I don't want to make anybody jealous, but it was the best attended of the town halls thus far. A packed house at Grantham Optimist. Kudos to our Port Dalhousie councillors for, biggest crowd size ever. With that, we will open the floor up to any councillors who want to add to the mayor's report today. Councillor Lindell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a social media post going around about a young girl who lost a ring in one of the Seymour Hannah dressing rooms, and her mom ran back to the arena. They wanted to get it because she was devastated, and an amazing employee named Dave reopened the arena, reopened the doors of the dressing room, and she found her ring. I mention this not only to highlight how amazing our staff are and helping our citizens of St. Catharines, but of course Dave Crane is a lifelong resident of Meriton and helped out where he could. And actually it's an amazing story because we can see through social media just how important our staff is. Thank you.
Truly, we are blessed to have the joy of Meriton spread throughout our broader community. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, I had the opportunity to represent the city at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Advocacy Days in Ottawa. Over 3 days, I met with interim leader of the NDP, Don Davies, ministers, MPs, and municipal leaders from across the country to advocate for housing, infrastructure, transit, and the tools municipalities need to succeed. I also used the opportunity to recommend that the federal government invest in Canadian shipbuilding, specifically maybe at Ontario shipyards, and the importance of that. One of the things I did learn, I learned a lot, but I'm trying to keep it short, was that some municipalities are now looking to use municipal bonds to generate infrastructure dollars, which was really quite an interesting thing, and we advocated to remove the income tax on those, so we'll see how that goes. We also heard from Minister Gregor Robertson, and he spoke about the importance of modular and off-site construction, really encouraging developers to invest in ways to speed up housing delivery, extend the building season, and boost employment in our communities. And I was also proud to share our city's success with the Housing Accelerator Fund, talked a little bit about public transit funds, and emphasized the need for the government to invest in the Canada Community Building Fund to support vital projects, roads, water, and recreation. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of that. It was a lovely 2 days, and then it rained, and it was not lovely. At and then just two notices, St. George's Anglican Church on Remembrance Sunday, they will continue their tradition of offering a requiem. And then on November 11th, St. George's is screening the Philadelphia 11, which is about a group of women and their supporters who organized their ordination to become Episcopal priests in 1974. And there is a panel discussion following that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I will also add, for those who are curious, only because I was informed of this today, St. George's is also hosting their Christmas Bazaar on the 15th of November from 10 to 2. It is Christmas Bazaar season. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you. It's the first week of the month, so that means it's the Port Dalhousie Lions Spaghetti Night on Wednesday at their hall on Main Street. Just a quick shout out for that.
And unfortunately, of course, we will all be here for the very important budget meeting. Otherwise, we would all be in Port Dalhousie for spaghetti. Councillor Mako.
Thank you, Mayor. On the topic of Remembrance Day, St. John's Anglican Church on Main Street in Port Dalhousie has once again put up this beautiful poppy cascade display. Some of you may have seen it last year. It looks like a waterfall of poppies from the top to both sides. It's just stunning, and it's now right across the street from the Cenotaph, which has the Veterans Crosswalk. So it just creates this really nice space. And just encourage any of you, if you're heading through beautiful Port Dalhousie, just pause between now and Remembrance Day and just check out that area where you got the Veterans Crosswalk on one side of the street and this beautiful church on the other side. Thank you to the St. John's Anglican members for creating that.
Thank you, Councillor Mako, for raising that. It is very beautiful if you get a chance to take a look at it during this Remembrance season. At this time, I believe Councillor Stevens coming to us from the ceiling.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just go along with Councillor Williamson's thoughts, as well as the Grantham Lions Club. The first Friday of the month is coming up, so it's their monthly fish fry coming this Friday. So make sure you want some of the best fish and chips in the city. Grantham Lions Club this Friday night. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Seeing no other, nope, Councillor Townsend.
I'll just be quick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to wish my colleague, Councillor Stevens, a healthy recovery. I know he's been put on the injured reserve list with his knee surgery, so just want to wish him a healthy recovery and looking to have him back soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. I debated saying something. I really appreciate that you jumped in, and then I reminded myself that Councillor Townsend has been live streaming this on, or Councillor Stevens has been live streaming this on Facebook for the last couple of weeks. So I should have realized maybe it wasn't quite as personal as it was in my head. With that, we'll make sure that he's muted and can't jump in. I will look to the acting city clerk for the adoption of the agenda.
The following amendments have been made to the agenda. Councillor Ratzlaff would like to request that council consider a motion not appearing on the agenda this evening. It's regarding the communications related to 282 to 285 Ontario Street. And per council's procedure bylaw, section M 6.4, motions not appearing on the agenda can only be considered if council votes unanimously in favor of considering the motion. If that motion passes, then council will consider the matter under the motions portion of the agenda. The following items of additional correspondence have been placed in council's sugar sink folder. The materials will be part of council's correspondence listing published on November the 12th, which is found on city's website. The letter from Ridley College regarding the street naming request, and item number 2, letter from Jamie Fleming regarding 37 Ontario Street and 3 Ontario Lane.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Harris, I'm going to ask you to hold on. We're going to deal with Councillor Ratzlaff first, then we will deal with your concern with respect to the agenda. So I have a motion to consider a motion not appearing on the agenda. Moving this is Councillor Ratzlaff. Seconding the motion to allow the motion to be considered this evening is Councillor McPherson. So this is just to allow it to be on the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. All right, Councillor Harris.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was just hoping, we're going to pull the item of correspondence from Ridley College, and I was hoping that we could endorse it tonight. And I was going to look to the clerk for some comment, and then once I have some comment, then perhaps I have some questions for staff.
So I think we would want to save this until we get to the discussion reports or consent reports.
Okay.
But we can deal with it at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if councillors are also having the same issue, but there's issues with Sugar Sink yet again, where the materials for tonight's meeting have not been loaded, and there's some important things that I think we need to have. So if staff could maybe assist with this.
Just looking to the clerk. Okay, so I think we'll ask the clerk's office to look into that. I think we can continue through the agenda while we are figuring out what the issue is with Sugar Sink at this exact moment. We have some changes to the agenda, so could I have a motion to adopt the agenda? I have Councillor Phillips, Councillor Dodge. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 3, the adoption of the minutes. The council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October the 20th, 2025. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Mako, Councillor Lindell. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Move to number 5, the motion to move the consent reports. The motion is the council approve the consent agenda, save and accept those items brought forward for discussion. Can I have a mover for the consent reports? Councillor Phillips. Councillor Townsend, you had a question?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, can I pull 6.2, please, for discussion? It's the building unauthorized regulation for parking on boulevards, front yards, and side streets.
Okay.
Thank you.
So 6.2 is being moved to the discussion agenda. Seeing no others, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Today's consent agenda consists of item 6.1, engineering, facilities and environmental services, facilities and energy, feasibility of solar panels on city structures and parking lots. Item 6.3, Financial Management Services Director Investment Policy Update for 2025. And item 6.4, Planning and Building Services, 159 Ontario Street, Tax Incentive Application considered under 2020 Community Improvement Plan 2020 CIP, August 2025 intake. Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Mako.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner. Yes. Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
Our declaration to all presenters. Council chambers in all municipalities in our country represent the seat of local democracy. The many acts that govern us understand the necessity of the collective voice when decisions are being made to grow our spaces, pass our bylaws, and to seek opinions into very complex issues, ensuring safe spaces for all in our public discourse. We recognize the right of the majority to decide, the minority to be heard, the public to have an opportunity to participate, and all participants to be treated with courtesy and respect. It is imperative that elected officials, citizens, and staff have input, and it is paramount that we listen to one another and question one another, but that we understand we do this in a way that never undermines any person's ability or their dignity in our chambers. We respect the right for everyone to have an opinion and remind the audience views of the public do not always reflect those of the Corporation of the City of St. Catharines. At this time, we will be entering into public meetings, and 7.1, the Planning and Building Services Planning Act public meeting. The purpose of this public meeting is to ensure that sufficient information is available for the public and council to understand the proposed applications to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw 2013-283, subject lands 161 Church Street and 69, 71, 73, 75, 79, 81, 83, and 87 Geneva Street, and to provide the public with an opportunity for input before council's decision. If a specified person or public body is defined in the Planning Act, or the registered owner of the land does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or written submission to council prior to council making its decision, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or written submission prior to the council decision, that person may not be added as a party to the hearing of any appeals by others without the permission of the tribunal. The public meeting will proceed as follows. Staff will explain the applications to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw 2013-283, subject lands 161 Church Street and 69, 71, 73, 75, 79, 81, 83, and 87 Geneva Street. The agent will speak and council will have an opportunity to ask questions. Members of the public wishing to delegate were requested to register by 9 a.m. today. No one requested to speak. Those in the gallery that would like to speak will be permitted to do so after the agent has made their presentation. The deadline to submit additional written comments not previously published on the council correspondence listing was 12 p.m. today, and no comments were received. After all of that, the public meeting will be closed. And then council will be able to ask staff questions and will consider the motion to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw 2013-283, subject lands 161 Church Street and 69, 71, 73, 75, 79, 81, 83, and 87 Geneva Street. The public meeting is now open, and I'll call upon Brenda Stan, planner, to present.
Good evening, Mayor Cisco, City Councilors, staff, and members of the public. My name is Brenda Stan. I'm the planner with the City of St. Catharines. I'm here to present staff's recommendation for the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments applications for 161 Church Street and 69 to 87 Geneva Street. Am I changing? The subject lands are located on the northwest corner of Church and Geneva Streets. Oops. Sorry, I'm getting used to this mouse. The subject lands include 7 parcels of lands at the corner of Church Street along Geneva Street. This slide shows some of the existing buildings. The lands include a variety of residential and commercial uses and parking areas. A mixed-use building is proposed at the northwest corner of Church and Geneva Streets, which is 19 stories at the corner, stepping down to 4 stories along Geneva Street. 197 residential units are proposed, 1858 square meters of commercial units on the ground floor, and a restaurant and outdoor patio are proposed on the 19th floor. 221 parking spaces are proposed and 89 bicycle parking spaces. The conceptual site plan shows that the building has been sited to frame the corner of Church and Geneva Streets. Covered patios are proposed at the corner to enhance street activity. 2 accesses are proposed, one from Church Street and one from Geneva Street. Surface parking is located at the rear of the site to minimize impact on the street frontage. The official plan amendment proposes to redesignate the lands to mixed high-density residential commercial and add a special policy to permit commercial uses on the upper floors. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone the lands to high-density mixed-use M3, apply special provision 92 downtown parking exemption, and add special provision 189 to establish site-specific zoning provisions, including increased lot area, lot frontage, reduce setbacks, and establish maximum building heights and minimum amenity space requirements. The surrounding uses include a diverse mix of land uses, including low-density and high-density residential uses. Nearby commercial uses include retail stores, restaurants, and offices. Institutional uses, including schools and a place of worship, are also located nearby. The official plan. The lands are currently designated mixed, medium, high-density residential commercial in the downtown planning district. The official plan is proposed to be redesignated to mixed, medium, high-density residential commercial with a policy to allow commercial uses on the upper floors of the building. The city zoning bylaw zones the lands medium-density mixed-use M1 with special provisions 92, 93, and 107. Special provision 92, the downtown parking exemption, exempts residential and non-residential uses from parking requirements, while special provision 93, residential parking exemption, exempts residential development from parking requirements. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to change the zoning to high-density mixed-use M3 and apply special provision 92 to the entire site and include a special provision 198. The following slides outline some of the zoning provisions. A maximum height of 164 meters has been established at the corner, stepping down to 40 meters and then to 15 meters towards the north end of the site. This provides a taller building presence at the corner and a lower scale towards the north end of the site. A 6-meter height encroachment is permitted for the rooftop mechanical equipment. As Church Street is the shortest lot line, it is defined as the front lot line. The proposed development provides a front yard setback of 3 meters for building heights up to 14 meters. Above 14 meters, a 4.5 setback is proposed. Due to the irregular lot configuration, the rear yard setback is the north lot line, where the existing building forms the property edge. The exterior side yard setback is Geneva Street. The proposed setback reflects the location of the existing building. A maximum non-residential gross leasable floor area of 2,000 square meters has been established. This provides flexibility to permit non-residential uses in the mixed-use development. Although the proposal includes a variety of outdoor amenity space, a minimum outdoor amenity space of 300 square meters has been incorporated to generally reflect the 11th floor outdoor amenity area. Special provision 92 has been applied to the entire site to remove the minimum parking requirements for non-residential uses, providing flexibility for the developer to determine parking needs. A total of 221 parking spaces have been provided. So a public consultation and open house was held at City Hall on March the 20th, 2025, to discuss the proposed mixed-use development. Several attendees and email respondents expressed support, noting that the proposal could encourage future development in the area. They liked the building design and the addition of new housing units. Concerns were also raised, including traffic and safety, parking availability, and shadow impacts. Staff have reviewed the supporting studies and are satisfied that potential impacts have been addressed as outlined in the report. The application was circulated to city departments and external agencies for review, and no objections were received. CRCS staff request a minimum outdoor amenity space provision due to a lack of nearby parkland. Development engineering staff confirmed there is sufficient servicing capacity, and the facade of 87 Geneva Street has been retained and incorporated into the development. Staff evaluated the proposal against provincial and regional plans and policies, including the provincial policy statement, the Niagara official plan, and determined that the proposal meets provincial and regional policies. In conclusion, staff recommend that council approve the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments as recommended. The amendments are consistent with the provincial policy statement and conform to the Niagara official plan and the Garden City plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stan, for your presentation. At this time, I will call upon Stephen Bedford, the agent from Landex Developments, to present. Mr. Bedford, the lectern is yours.
I'll just test this machine here. I think we have it. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Cisco, members of council, staff, and members of the public here this evening. And thank you, Brenda, for your comprehensive review of this project and the applications being considered this evening. My name is Stephen Bedford. I'm the principal planner with Landex Development on this project. We're the planners and project managers for this project. I'm also pleased to introduce to you this evening, along with the Landex team, Lou Marcantonio of 2M Architects, the lead architect on this project, and Tam Doe and his family, the person whose vision and hopes for St. Catharines has put this project together. Our team has been working together for over the last 4 years to bring this project to this stage and hopefully its approval this evening. I'm particularly proud to be working with Tam, who's worked tirelessly since coming to Niagara in the early 90s, and in the 90s. And to be in a position to be able to support his city with this project. From working several years on farms, to opening a nail salon, to learning cooking, and in 2011 opening Photobo, an incredibly busy establishment that we all know. In 2016, Tam purchased Helen's Creations and opened Lang Vietnamese Hot Pot. In order to find apartments for his staff, he purchased 2 adjacent properties, Part 2 and Part 7. Other properties he purchased because of issues he was having in the neighborhood. I'm sure you have noticed that Tam does not have the same issues on his property as other people do in the neighborhood. Eventually, his properties together included over 5,100 square meters, or 1.3 acres. As both Church and Geneva are undersized, we are providing road widenings, which leaves a net developable area of 4,935 square meters. "161 Church will implement the official plan policies and the urban design guidelines by creating a gateway to the downtown. This 197-unit apartment building creates a visual prominent corner. The building steps down as one moves north into the commercial and residential neighborhood to the north. The intersection of Church and Geneva creates a natural gateway to the downtown, with vehicle and transit routes in and out of the downtown coming through the corner. A great location for another apartment building, with schools and other institutional uses immediately adjacent. City Hall, Market Square, the Central Library, and downtown center are only a short walk away. Creating a positive pedestrian experience is critical. The corner will be developed with a restaurant and patio, accessible and step back from the sidewalk. Retail commercial storefronts continues the positive pedestrian environment as one moves north along Geneva. The cornice along the face of the building and the sidewalk emphasizes the pedestrian environment and responds to the architecture of the buildings to the north. You can see here the relationship between the cornice on the new apartment building and how it relates positively to the heritage building to the north, which is being retained and incorporated into this development. This creates a smooth transition to the building to the north, continuing to emphasize the pedestrian environment along the sidewalk. These next two slides describe the site plan. The northerly building maintains the foundation and historic facade with a commercial ground floor and residential above. The building is connected to the new apartment with an enclosed walkway. Here you see the main vehicle entrance off Geneva into the underground garage and the at-grade parking in the rear. At the moment, the Church Street access is showing only an outright turn. We are hoping, as the site plan moves forward, that between the city staff and ourselves, we work with the region to get a full in and out traffic movement onto Church Street. This ground floor plan illustrates the commercial units and the restaurant at the corner, creating a positive pedestrian environment along both Church and Geneva. We've worked hard to ensure the pedestrian access into these retail spaces from the sidewalk works so that the transition from the sidewalk into the main building is smooth. Brenda has already described the statistical details of the proposal. 197 units, 165 one-bedroom units, 30 two-bedroom units, and 2 four-bedroom units. There are 221 parking spaces being provided for this development. M has spent a lot of time building the relationship of this building with the street, creating a positive pedestrian environment, particularly with the restaurant patio at the corner and the entrances into the commercial retail spaces. The height of the building focuses at Geneva and Church and steps down to the north, and the commercial buildings and residential neighborhood to the north. We felt it very important to create the step backs you see here. While breaking up the massing, these step backs create the opportunities for added outdoor amenity spaces for residents, which has been recognized by staff. These are the changes that are being requested in the zoning bylaw. And as you can see, the maximum lot coverage, 4,000 is required. We have maximum lot area, and we in fact have 4,900 square meters of lot area, and that's being recognized. The frontage as well, we have a larger frontage on Church Street, and that is also being recognized. We are also making a point of adding to the bylaw, recognizing within the bylaw the step backs so that they're maintained as we move forward through the site plan agreement. And again, the total non-residential gross leasable floor area has been increased. We've added restaurant space to the top of the apartment building so that we have the opportunity for TAM to open another restaurant in town. So with that, I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bedford, for your presentation. To Council, are there any questions for the presenter? Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation, Mr. Bedford. We've had many of these, and I spoke with the mayor about this, many of these applications recently, and so far not too many of them have started. When does your client anticipate putting a shovel in the ground? And please include the year as well as the month.
Frankly, TAM is very eager to move forward on this development. We have the site plan agreement to move forward with, and we also are looking for partners to help with the construction of this property, but he is very energized to move forward on this development.
But he doesn't have a date yet.
No, we don't have a date.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Kushner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I heard that commercial would be on the upper floors. I thought was plural, upper floors. And my question is, we have much commercial space in the downtown. We have a shortage of housing units in the downtown. So why not convert that to housing units?
I must have misspoken. The commercial space is only on the ground floor and on the top of the apartment building.
Thank you.
Councillor Williamson.
Mr. Mayor, through the presenter. Sir, is there any commitment to doing some affordable or attainable housing in this development?
At this time, we have not considered affordable. When we started this project, we were and if you look at the units and the unit sizes and the parking that's being provided, we were in fact looking at an ownership model for this building. As things move forward, there may be the opportunity for affordable units, but at the present time, the concept was for purchase of the units.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Mako.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the presenter, I'm wondering if you could speak a bit to the outdoor amenity areas. One line that stood out to me from the report was the subject lands are in one of the most underserviced areas for parkland in the city. So I'm just thinking about families with young children that might be moving into this building, a lack of green space, parks, playgrounds, just opportunities for unstructured play for children. There isn't much within walking distance of this building, so I'm just wondering if you could speak to that, what opportunities there might be.
We did recognize the comments from staff. We happen to be right next door to two schoolyards. So that, as much the staff doesn't recognize schoolyards as part of the system that they look after because they don't look after them. But children will be able to use the two schoolyards that are there. But we've also, if you noticed, I'm trying to move this back, and it won't move back. But there are two patio spaces on the upper floors that have been created. One above the Heritage Building at the north end of the site, and another, one of the step backs, has created the opportunity for outdoor space in the building, along with additional amenity space that is within the building.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I hope those school playgrounds are open to the public. I know some are locked up after school hours, but not sure.
Just depends how big the padlock is. My dog gets into schoolyards quite easily.
Thank you.
Along with the kids that are playing soccer. We have a great time.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Bedford, for the presentation. Exciting project. I'll try to fit a question in there. Could you just talk about the thought process for creating that street level experience versus the kind of the chrome metal division? Like, why was that done? Or just because I think aesthetically it looks much nicer, but I
So,
wanted to just get your opinion on that one.
Sure, I'm still having trouble with my PowerPoint. I'm the one that's not supposed to be able to move this. There we go, thank you. There we go. So if you look here, so what the road widening is given an opportunity to create a wider sidewalk, and we've also moved the building as close to the road allowance as we possibly could. So the sidewalk space is a little wider, so we'll be able to create a good pedestrian movement, and we'll, as part of the site plan agreement, hopefully we'll be able to work with the city to create some pedestrian space. You can see that at the corner, the restaurant is stepped back from the corner, so again, it opens up for the pedestrians to be able to visually see into the restaurant and create some open space. So the cornice of the building creates, and if you look at all the buildings on St. Paul Street, all of these buildings have a cornice level which separates the retail from the residential or commercial above on St. Paul Street, where there is some commercial. So it creates that physical separation between the pedestrian area and the development that occurs above it, and creates a space that the pedestrians can call home.
Thank you. Fantastic. Looking forward to it being built.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Seeing no other questions, thank you, Mr. Bedford, for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
At this time, is there anybody else in attendance who wishes to speak on this matter? All right, seeing none, can I have a motion to close the public meeting? Councillor McPherson, Councillor Phillips. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. The public meeting is now closed and council is called to order. Persons wishing to receive notice of council's decision should submit a written request to the office of the city clerk. Can I have a councillor to move the recommendation in the report? Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Kushner. Are there any questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, I will ask the clerk momentarily to call the roll. I will just take an opportunity to say kudos to the developer. Kudos to Mr. Doe and his family for bringing forward this presentation. This is one of the quickest public meetings we've had in this term of council, so I appreciate that. I hope it's a positive thing, but I would encourage my colleagues to vote in favor. And while we are voting, if you want to take a look, your sugar sink folder is now up to date.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Mako.
Yes.
And Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
Unanimously. All right, moving on to number 8, presentations. There are none this evening, so we move to discussion reports. And we have pulled item 6.2 forward, which is regarding parking on, the unauthorized regulation of parking on boulevards, front yards, and side yards. And can I have a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor? Councillor Williamson, Councillor Townsend, all right. And then Councillor, I will leave it to any councillors who wish to speak to this. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to speak on this. I do have a few questions perhaps staff can answer. I do have some serious concerns about what is being proposed here, especially because Councillor Stevens and I will be getting a lot of phone calls because there are certain areas in our ward that there's only boulevard parking, and I'm sure the Port Dalhousie councillors will also be getting a lot of phone calls, and I'm sure the downtown councillors will also be getting a bunch of phone calls. In regards to those residents who currently have converted their front lawn to a parking space, and I can think of at least 50, I can go down the list. How will this impact them who have currently created that? And, I can think of my neighbor who will not be very happy and, very concerned about this proposal. So I'm wondering if staff can comment on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that would be a matter that I would defer to the planning team because it would be a zoning matter.
Through the mayor to the councillor, it's a difficult question to answer on a holistic basis. Every property would have to be considered on its own merits. Should individual properties have applied for and received or put in parking pads that were in compliance with the zoning bylaw, then there is no concern. However, where issues, the intent of where this bylaw is trying to go is for vehicles that are parking on front lawns, on the grassy areas, as well as on side yards, perhaps in visibility triangles and things of that nature. So if a person has installed a parking pad that's not in compliance with the zoning bylaw, then that would be a matter for zoning enforcement. The bylaw before you this evening is designed in a way that is for parking enforcement on boulevards and grassy areas.
Thank you for that. Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's saying that it'll be enforced 7 days a week, year round. I'm just wondering if staff can comment on that. Do we currently operate parking enforcement 7 days a week in the city? Is that fair to, because I'm not understanding that. I don't think we do, but maybe staff can comment on that.
Through you, Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Yes, parking enforcement is operated 7 days a week. We operate from 8 o'clock till 8 p.m. Monday to Fridays, and then till 9 o'clock during the beach season. And on the weekends, we operate from 11:30 to 8 o'clock at night on the weekends.
Okay, thank you for that. And then I guess one of my big concerns here is we are, and I know in St. George's ward, Councillor Stevens and I get a lot of phone calls about those individuals who are now building ADUs in their backyard and they need extra parking. And some of them are using part of their front lawn and paving it. So how can we be encouraging ADUs to be built on site and not allowing them to have the actual parking spaces available? I think there's a lot of concerns with this, and if a councillor wants to refer this back to staff, with respect, I don't think this has been truly well thought out. I have a lot of concerns about this. I know in St. George's ward, and I know in Port Dalhousie, and there's gonna be spaces downtown. We're gonna get a lot of phone calls. We're gonna get a lot of residents calling and complaining once this bylaw is put out. And with respect, I don't believe we have the staff available right now to actually enforce this. So I will not be supportive of this. I'll let other councillors jump in and share their perspectives, but Councillor Stevens and I already get a number of phone calls on issues like this, and it's mostly from residents who are angry at the fact that another neighbor has called to complain city staff on the fact that they have their car parked on their lawn, which they have converted into a parking space because they don't have parking space on the road right now. So I will not be supporting this, and I'd like to hear from my colleagues on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Stevens next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the concerns I had is, I know a few years back, with the cost of water, for example, a lot of people will pull their cars on the lawn to wash their car, and rightly so. Why would we want to waste all our water, and you're paying for water in and water out to run down your driveway? So is there leeway or tolerance with the bylaw. If the guy's coming by and I happen to be washing my car, you could say it's parked there. I would argue that it's not parked there. I'm washing it, and it's a totally different thing, but that's a legal matter. To say it's there temporarily and it's being moved, it's better for the environment. They say when you have soap on the lawn, it relaxes the lawns, and then you're watering it as well, and weeds don't grow and everything else. So is there anything in place to allow that, instead of this, bylaw guy coming down hard on the neighbor and saying, move your car, I'm going to come back in 10 minutes, and it better be gone. And I've heard that happen from residents. So I just don't want to see that as well. I know it's a sidebar from the parking all the time, but it is an issue, and there hasn't been anything addressed to that. So I might be along the lines with Councillor Townsend that maybe this needs to go back and have a little bit more research done on it. That's a question there. Is there any kind of tolerance for something like that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, most of these complaints are complaint-based, coming in through complaint-based. So we're enforcing those based on the complaints that are coming in. If the enforcement officer is out in the area and they do notice that there is a violation, it can be ticketed, but currently most of these are done on, well, they would be done on a complaint basis only.
No, I understand that, but the bylaw is going to give a guy a ticket for washing his car. It's there for, 20 minutes or something like that. So will the resident be able to come back and fight that and say, I really wasn't parking? And I know it's one of these little gray area type things, but the bylaw is too broad in that sense. And I think we need to be more specific on certain things. And there has to be some leeway. Parking all the time on the lawn turns into a mud hole. I get it. None of the neighbors like it. It looks like crap. And I see that all over the place. And I think that's the original intent, but I think it has to be refined more to allow for little things like this, that there has to be some kind of discretion, and not have all the residents peed off at the bylaw because they're doing something on a temporary basis, and they're doing something for the good of the environment as well. Like I said, by washing their car on their lawn and watering the lawn instead of watering going down the ditch into the sewers, which we already know can't handle a lot of extra stuff. So I think it's a win-win to be able to let people water their car or wash their car on their lawn. And I just don't see any kind of leeway in this thing here. So I think it needs further review itself.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm appreciative to Councillor Townsend for pulling this, and I share his concerns in terms of enforcement. Already in Port Dalhousie, we have lots of visitors who come and park and create issues for local residents in terms of blocking driveways and all kinds of other issues. I also think that it seems like a pretty aggressive timeline, and the report talks about an education campaign. I think we will need a little bit more in terms of consultation to get this up and running January the 1st, which is just a number of weeks away. So yeah, I think it should go back to the drawing board. I don't like to see people when they pave over their front lawn. I think that's not good, but there's lots of people who do use boulevards, and it's permeable and not that, doesn't have negative drawbacks so much on the environment. So I think we need to take a little bit of time to work this out, and like I said, enforcement is going to be a difficult thing to do when we don't seem to have the resources to deal with the problems that we already have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, it's my understanding that when you own a home that you are expected to have a certain percentage of your front lawn as a front lawn, not be paved. I'm not sure what the percentage is. It was something like 50%. So if people are going and now paving over that green space, that to me would be a violation, would it not? To planning?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, that's correct. Our residential zones do have limitations on how wide parking areas can be. And this is why I had previously responded that, it's kind of a site-by-site basis on which properties with which widths do comply. One of the things that this bylaw was capturing, though, is not necessarily a driveway compliance on the private property. This was for perhaps vehicles that were parking on boulevards that stretched over onto front lawns, as well as in visibility triangles and on side lots as well.
Okay, thank you. And my second question, I guess technical. As far as parking on boulevards are concerned, as long as the car does not impede the sidewalk or the roadway, is the resident or the owner of the car allowed to park on that portion of the paved boulevard? As long as it doesn't impede on sidewalk or roadway?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillors. Currently, we enforce a boulevard bylaw, so that's underneath the traffic bylaw. And usually, how we measure it currently is that if we had two tires on the graveled area, two on the paved area. If you were completely on a boulevard, it would be a boulevard infraction and enforced underneath the traffic bylaw. So on the grassy area of a boulevard, if it was off the entire roadway, it would be considered a boulevard violation.
Just to be clear, so if that car is parked completely on a paved boulevard, not impeding the walkway or the sidewalk or the roadway, is that legal? Just say yes or no.
Oh, sorry. Well, there's, if it was paved over, if it was a boulevard and it was paved over, it would be considered a boulevard, and no, you can't park there.
Because it's an entrance onto a driveway,
right-of-way.
for example. It's an entrance onto a driveway. I've got a situation on Scott Street where, because of the bike lanes being added, people were parking, and this goes back a few years ago, but it's still a problem, where there's not enough room all of a sudden in their driveway to get their two cars or their third car for their child. And we have put parking enforcement in the neighborhood so that it's a long walk to get to their house, but yet they can park on the boulevard and not impede either section. So you're saying that that's not allowed in this?
That portion that you're referring to is the apron of the driveway, and in that circumstance, there isn't enough room for that vehicle to be parked without impeding the sidewalk or impeding the bike lanes. So in that circumstance, there isn't enough room for those vehicles to be parked on the apron.
But if they are parked longitudinally beside the roadway, there would be.
That is correct. That is correct. Yes.
So that would be allowed?
If they were parked, we do allow for that. If they're parked like along the sidewalk, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Kushner.
Mr. Mayor, my colleague, Matt Harris, and I would like to have this referred back to staff.
Motion to refer is non-debatable. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, moving on to item 6, moving on to the Ridley Communications item. And Councillor Harris, you had a question for the clerk, so I'm going to let you ask that question.
It's not so much a question. I was hoping that we could vote on it and endorse it, endorse the request from Ridley College. So I guess there was some confusion, and maybe the clerk can talk about it, about the naming policies and stuff if she would like to, and then I'll direct some questions towards staff, because I think there was some communication and something got lost in the communication, and Ridley actually doesn't want the name that's been put up. So, do you want me to direct questions to the staff?
You had questions for the clerk, so the clerk, I think you had asked Ed to provide some information.
Sure.
Don't turn your mic off, though.
Okay.
Thank you.
So through the mayor to the councillor, so there's a couple of policies that would have to be waived if council wanted to entertain the renaming today. So the first one would be in 2022, council passed a motion that any future street renaming requests be considered in accordance with our naming policy. So if you want to proceed tonight, you'd have to waive that policy. That would also mean eliminating the notice requirements to any other landowners in the area. In terms of notice, our public notice policy does state that any street name renaming has to appear on a council agenda 10 days before it's considered. So that would also have to be waived.
Okay, I guess I'm going to ask a couple questions then. Have we ever not followed that policy? Pretty sure, no?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I guess, I'm not sure who I'd direct this to, but was that policy followed when it was named Miller Lane?
Through the mayor to the council, if it's helpful. So the street in question right now is currently called Miller Avenue, and that is the name that was requested by Ridley College when the city approved the subdivision plan. I understand Ridley has now have changed their mind and is requesting a different name, but to be clear, Miller Avenue was the name originally requested by Ridley for that street.
Okay, I guess my question through the mayor to the manager of planning services. Did Ridley communicate a while ago that they didn't wish it to be named Miller Lane or Miller Avenue?
Through the mayor to the councilor, yes, representatives from Ridley College did reach out to staff. I believe it was in the summertime. They did inquire about the process for renaming it. They expressed an interest in having a different name applied to that street and wanted to understand what steps would need to be taken.
Okay, and I guess my next question through the mayor to the manager of planning services, did we get back to Ridley to explain?
Through the mayor to the councilor, yes, staff had multiple meetings with representatives from Ridley College and outlined the process. It was our recommendation that should they wish to rename the street, I believe they want Flourishing Way as the requested name, we recommend that the appropriate path would be to submit correspondence to council making that request.
So I guess this would, through the mayor to the manager of planning services, this is what your recommendation was, that they came forward with a letter?
Through the mayor to the councilor, that was the process that staff recommended if
Okay.
Ridley wanted to see this change implemented expeditiously.
Okay, so I guess that's the answer I was looking for. So now, would you like us to do some sort of motion to waive the rules, or how do you want to do this? And I guess it would be moved by Councillor Kushner, seconded by me.
So it's up on the screen, Counselor.
Kushner, no, the mover and the seconder.
I understand. I'm just saying the most you asked, do we want? Well, the motion's up on the
Okay.
screen, so.
Yeah, let's
If
go.
we could add Councilors Kushner and Harris as the mover and seconder.
Sorry, Miller.
The one question mark, there are costs that are associated with this. Where would we like the costs to come from? I would suggest perhaps the tax rate stabilization reserve as this is a
Sure,
one-time
that
cost.
sounds wonderful.
Glad I could provide you with a solution just like that,
Thank you.
Counselor. Okay. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? And-
Maybe, I guess there's some questions here. Could I just, through you, Mr. Mayor, ask, this whole process, was there some sort of like land swap, or how did it actually unfold? Was the property, was there an agreement at the very beginning? I guess through the mayor to maybe the director of economic development,
Oh,
or?
I think the CAO is going to take this one.
Okay,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a memorandum of understanding between the city and Ridley College on when the established roadway was to go through. At that time, there were a variety of pieces put together. It was tied to Ridley Road reconstruction, all of the roadworks that were associated. Street lighting was another part of that discussion. As part of the plan of subdivision, that's where the name of the actual road was incorporated. I think where you're getting at in specific to the actual road naming, it was handled through the plan of subdivision. And then when the name has to change, it now falls under this public policy, which was introduced in 2002. So the motion that you have up on the floor allows that to happen.
okay. Thank you.
Is that a chastened Councilor Harris right there? Just the look on his face seemed chastened. Councilor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question is in regards to what is the cost of this? There's no cost up on the screen. Any estimations on what it would cost?
I'm going to look to Mr. Martuccio. How much does it cost to change a road sign?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. To you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have the cost, but I don't believe the costs are that expensive. I don't want to put a number out, but it's not very expensive.
Would someone like to provide perhaps an upset limit, Ms. Douglas?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that an upper limit of a couple $1,000s should be reasonable for this.
So, can I make an assumption that some of that number is staff time and notifications of the appropriate folks who need to be notified? This has already been gone through as this is the name of the street, so there are things that have to be done to make that change legally. Am I correct? That's part of that cost? Mr. Ritchie?
Yes, in addition to the cost to manufacture and install the new signs, there are also some legal costs that the city will inquire as well with the registry office and mapping updates and things like that. There is also another parcel that has a Miller Avenue address. That address will need to be changed, so there is some administrative and legal costs as well. So I would agree with the director, a couple thousand should cover it.
Okay.
Thank you. Can we put that cost in there, please, Mr. Mayor? Thank you. Up to max 2.
Max of, to a maximum of $2,000. Is that, can we open up Councillor Harris's mic?
I guess, I'm not sure, like, I'm not an expert on signs, but I think the pole is already there, so I realistically think $2,000, like, I'm confused.
So there's a cost to manufacture new signs, and there's the legal costs associated with renaming the road through the land registry. There's the cost of the notifications of the various folks that need to be notified, including the one landowner who has a property on that street.
Okay. So 2,000, that's what you,
Okay.
ish? Estimated 2,000?
So he's asked for an upset limit of $2,000. Mr. DeLallo wanted to speak.
Oh, here we go.
Yes, sir. Just to, to the mayor, I've identified a legal requirement in the Municipal Act. And 2 things. The name change has to be by bylaw, and notice of the intention to pass the bylaw has to be given.
Okay.
So I don't know if that warrants further discussions.
I have a question. Oh, perfect. Through the mayor to the assistant city solicitor. Did we do that when we took down Ice Dog's Way?
I'm not aware of that circumstance, but I would think that, well, it has to be done by bylaw, so.
So I guess my question through the mayor would be, if we pass this, does that mean we come up with a bylaw and pass a bylaw?
That's something I would recommend here, is to make this subject to the passing of a bylaw.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. The recommendation that's on the floor right now is that the request be approved, that the naming policy be waived, that requirements under the public notice policy be waived, and that the cost be associated from the tax rate stabilization reserve up to a maximum of $2,000. I think there's a general understanding that whatever process has to be followed will then be followed. So I don't think we need to throw any wrenches into the works here and talk about bylaws that need to be blunt. Do the thing. If this passes, do the thing. That's all. Are there any additional comments or concerns? I have Councillor Harris. Do you still need to speak?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
Wonderful. Councillor Kushner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To clarify, when we say the cost is $2,000, how much is out-of-pocket cost for the city? Putting aside staff time, et cetera.
I make the assumption that would be the creation of the sign and the land registry. That's it. Okay. Thank you, Councillor. That's clarifying. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't agree with doing this. We put a policy in place for a reason. It's to have the public engagement on things like this, to be more transparent and everything else. We've just waived the policy twice now to rename parks. And while I understand that and everything's a one-off, I don't believe in precedent setting. But the thing is, I can't see this name changing, and the name that they're doing is anything that's pressing and has to be done tomorrow. So I think due process should be followed, and we should do it the right way, or why do we even bother having a policy in renaming streets and parks and stuff if we're never going to do it anymore? So that's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Respectfully, because I haven't spoken yet. In most cases, the policy makes sense, and this is the thing that we have to remember about policy. Policy makes sense in most cases. But in this particular case, we asked Ridley, what do you want to call this street? And they gave a name, and then they gave a different name. So this isn't as if this name is some long-standing name that's been there for decades, and it was very specifically asked by them, and they changed their mind. Now, I wish they would have changed their mind before we put the signs up, before we went through the process, but they didn't. They changed it now. Councillor Harris has a request that we make the change that they're requesting. I think it's pretty straightforward. If you're not in favor of it, that's fine. Vote against it. But this is not the same as the other cases. The policy exists for most cases, but not all. Councillor Townsend for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification, I am in full support of this. I just believe that for transparency, we need to put up an actual number, and that's the only reason why it's been asked. The number's up there. Let's vote in favor of it and move it forward. Thank you.
And Councillor, I appreciate the fact that you asked for that clarity. I'm going to look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Mako.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
No.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
And Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
Can I just say that the only person who has any right to be upset right now is Councillor Miller, because his name was just abruptly torn off of a street sign in this community, and nobody even thought about how he feels right now. And it's appreciated, Councillor. Oh, how so many of us have grown. All right, we move on to number 10, and that is motions. Up first is 10.1, the shelter on Glenridge Avenue. Before discussing the motion, we will hear delegations from Scott Neufeld and Emily Spanton. At this time, I will call upon Scott Neufeld to speak. Yeah, come on through. Sorry. Mr. Neufeld, the lectern is yours, and you can use the buttons on the side to raise it if you feel the need.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. All right. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. It's an honor to speak to you tonight. I want to start by saying that I am a member of the Southridge Church community in St. Catharines, and my family and I have lived within a 5 minutes walk of the church and shelter on Glenridge Avenue since we moved to Niagara in January 2021. And one of the things that attracted us to be part of this church community is that the way that it had intentionally located itself in a place where it could more fully live out its mission, trying to follow Jesus in the way of showing love, compassion, and support for its neighbors, especially people experiencing poverty, challenges with mental health or substance use, and people experiencing homelessness. So, for the past 20 years, Southridge Church has partnered with the Niagara region to run what is now the region's largest shelter. It provides the largest number of beds for people seeking emergency shelter when they are temporarily without a home. The shelter is also not just a temporary shelter. For many people who have gone on to find stable long-term housing, they remain connected to the staff and the community that they've forged during their time there, returning for barbecues, euchre nights, and other social gatherings. Because at the end of the day, what many people are really facing when they show up at the door of an emergency shelter looking for help is not only challenges with poverty, mental health, substance use, and of course housing, but ultimately the challenge of social disconnection, loneliness, societal exclusion, and the lack of community. If there's one thing you take away from my brief words here tonight, I want you all to know from my own experience, the Southridge Shelter is a place of rich community and support. It makes my neighborhood stronger, it keeps my kids safer, and it aligns with the kind of world I dream of where everyone who needs support can access it without barrier. Now, during the pandemic, the region asked the Southridge Shelter to drop its former high barrier requirement that guests at the shelter abstain from all substance use during their stay. Now, as a Brock professor, community psychologist, and researcher who focuses on evidence-based drug policy, I was thrilled to hear that the church had recently decided to embrace this new harm reduction approach. So whereas formerly you could be kicked out for being under the influence of illicit substances, this approach makes no such requirements. Instead, it tries to meet people where they are at, ensuring there is a wider door where it's easier for everyone who needs shelter to access it without also, at the same time, having to live through excruciating withdrawal from substances on which they might be dependent. So this harm reduction or low barrier approach is an essential evidence-based practice for effectively supporting people who are struggling with both substance use and housing challenges. And there's reams of scientific evidence showing that when compared with the more traditional way of doing things, we won't help you or house you until you can somehow pull yourself up by your bootstraps and stop using illicit drugs, this housing-first, low-barrier approach is more effective, which makes a lot of sense. One thing that I've learned from both research and talking to lots of folks who've experienced homelessness is that contrary to what we may assume, many people, in fact, initiate or deepen their substance use after they experience the life disruptions, the stress of experiencing unsheltered homelessness. Being homeless is tough. It's cold, exhausting, stressful, and dangerous, and many, but not all people, turn to substances that help them to manage pain, stay awake, stay warm, or generally survive. So it makes sense then that in last year's Niagara Region homeless count, more than half of the people experiencing homelessness who were surveyed self-reported having a challenge with their substance use, and more than 70% reported a mental health issue. Offering safe emergency shelter for those folks and not making it contingent on them somehow figuring out how to resolve their mental health challenges or stop using substances before we'll help you is an essential step for many people on the way to regaining stability, reducing the harms of their substance use, and potentially taking steps towards better health or addiction recovery. I want to end with a question and an invitation for our two city councilors who have brought forward this motion. I kind of have to ask, I was a bit perplexed by it. What's this motion really about? And I encourage people to vote against it. I don't think we need it. If you have questions about the model, the need for it, or the place of the Southridge Shelter in the community, its doors are open. Come over and join in the fun. At the next community event, grab a cheap meal and great conversation at Norm's Place, a small cafe next to the shelter. Talk to folks who work at the shelter, folks who stay there or currently or formerly. Get to know their stories and see for yourself why my neighborhood needs this shelter and why this shelter needs to remain low barrier and accessible to everyone who needs it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Yeah, just hang on for a sec. Are there any questions? All right, Councillor Ratzlaff.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Thank you, Scott, for the presentation. As a member of Southridge, I can imagine there'd be some growing pains as Southridge transitioned from a high barrier to a lower barrier shelter. I'm just wondering, from your perspective and what you've heard from those who are involved in the leadership of the shelter, how have they adapted? And is this you think this move is a desire from the shelter itself? How's it going? And do you think that this comes from folks at Southridge?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thanks for the opportunity to expand on that. I had some stuff about that in an earlier version, but time. I think one thing I was really impressed with from joining the church soon after they had been asked to make that change by the region is that they seem to really be embracing it. And I know some of the leadership of the church and of the shelter is here, but I really, really have got the impression from being a part of that community, I've been really proud, honestly, to be a part of a community that's really said, this isn't being foisted onto us against our will. We're not, really grading against this. We're embracing it. We see the rationale for it. I've heard even on multiple Sunday morning services, people taking the time to educate the congregation about what is harm reduction? How does it align with our values of supporting people? And I think that's fantastic. So I've really got the impression deeply that this is not something that's been foisted onto the shelter against their will. It's something that they've truly embraced and are eager to move forward with.
No, thanks for that. And I want to say thanks to the Southridge community for taking on a project like this. The largest shelter in Niagara is something to be proud of. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Councillor Ratzlaff. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Neufeld, for coming in tonight. Much appreciated. I will be honest, I'm not an expert when it comes to these types of shelters. Just, I guess, one question would be is what is the average stay for someone who is staying in shelter? Like, do you find it's the same individuals that they're staying there for a long period of time? Or is it kind of a lot of turnover with new people coming in and out all the time?
I mean, I'm really not the best person to ask. I don't work for the region within homelessness services. I don't work for the shelter. But I mean, there's tons of people that would be able to give you instantly all kinds of data you would want to know about that stuff. I mean, I guess if I may, sort of beneath the question, I'm curious if there's sort of a wondering around, is there a certain point at which we should, cut people off? You've had your chances, and that's, all the support you deserve. And I really maybe reject that. I see maybe that's not what you mean, but, in terms of length of stay.
Yeah. Let me rephrase the question.
Sure, yeah.
Dr. Neufeld, so my question is in regards to, a lot of times where people stay in shelter, they transition into long-term homes.
Yeah.
There's been,
hopefully.
I'm assuming there's been a lot of success by the program that Southridge has been running by helping get people, cleaned up and getting them into safe long-term homes. Has there been a lot more success stories than stories that have, not been as successful through Southridge? I'm going to assume that there's been a lot of great success stories of people who have gone through, stayed at the shelter at Southridge, found the help that they got, and then got themselves into a better living situation. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's certainly what I've heard. Yeah,
Okay.
But I mean that kind of data is something you can learn more about from the people working there.
Thank you, and thank you for coming in tonight.
Great.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Councillor Kushner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to look at the history of Southridge. It was initiated by Mayor Rigby, and he and I advocated for the shelter in the neighborhood. And it worked very well. There weren't any problems in the neighborhood with it. But then years later, the region wanted the shelter to be a wet shelter, that is for people with addictions. And at that time, the shelter was reluctant to do so because they did not have trained staff to look after the people with the addictions. And prior to that happening, we in Ontario had involuntary confinement. And that worked very well because the people who were placed in they're called Ontario hospitals, when they're placed in the institution, they're well fed and they received exceptionally good medical care and treatment. And I think that worked very well. And we see in BC, they've gone to involuntary confinement now. And I would think that would be a better solution where you would have more expertise than what you have. And you do a great job, but I don't think you have the resources that the province would have if they had involuntary confinement. Now, there's, in the neighborhood, I know there are complaints about it. It's not about the shelter, but it's the people that gather there. It's an attraction, and there are problems in the neighborhood. And I know Matt Harris, who lives in the neighborhood, can speak to that. So my question is, do you have the proper staff to take care of these people with addictions?
Well, apologies if there was a misunderstanding, but I do not work for the shelter. I'm a member of the church community, and I'm a professor at Brock University. So this question would be better directed to somebody who works at the shelter.
Thank you.
But I mean, my understanding is certainly that there was a bit of a growth curve, a learning curve to adapt to, a new type of clientele with this change in policy. And I think it's been challenging at times for people, and the staff of the shelter could better speak to that. But to my understanding, I think there's also been a lot of learning and growth and in skill building to be able to support people, training in how to reverse overdoses, for example, how to apply first aid, how to, better support people and meet people where they're at. I mean, the question about people congregating, around the shelter who, appear to be visibly someone experiencing poverty or different challenges, I mean, I think we shouldn't be overly surprised by that. It is a place that we've, designated as a place of support for people who are experiencing challenges in our community. And just because it's now more visible to people doesn't mean that, we should blame the shelter for having produced these problems. In fact, the shelter is really trying to support people and help, those problems be less.
I don't think anybody is blaming the shelter. What they're concerned about is the people outside of the shelter that are causing problems in the neighborhood. So we all agree that the shelter does a great job. Thank you.
I mean, just to respond, it does seem like the sense of the motion is questioning the need for this shelter to be permanent compared to temporary, and then also to address a policy change that's enabled it to be lower barrier and more inclusive of people experiencing challenges with addictions. So I do think the spirit of the motion is targeting the nature of the shelter and its policies. So I think people should vote against this motion. I don't think it's very cogent, and I think, the opportunity to be here to speak to it is something I wanted to take, but I think I don't know what the motion can produce, and I also don't think it's within the jurisdiction of this council to make changes around Niagara Region shelter policy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kushner. Councillor Mako.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the presenter. I'm not sure if this will be within your realm of knowledge either, but
Might as well try.
That temporary permanent wording, I was under the assumption it was not permanent, and there was a renewal of the service agreement every 3 to 5 years from a funding perspective. Are you aware of that? Because I wasn't aware it was permanent from a funding perspective.
Okay. I mean, it could be the case in a technical sense that it isn't. I mean, it's been there for quite some time now, so.
There's a renewed application process
Right.
every number of years, and they could choose to opt out at some point.
Fair enough, that may be the case, but, I don't work there, and I'm not the one handling these policies, so I'm not the right person to direct this question to.
Thank you.
Councillor Harris.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter, do you think that's the best location? Like with your expertise, where would you think a shelter should be? Should it be closer to resources or supports?
I mean, I think it's maybe a little bit farther from, where there are other resources that people, who may be accessing a shelter, might be needing, like additional food programs or low barrier health services, which are sometimes focused around the Queenston neighborhood. But I think it's very accessible. It's on a couple of primary bus routes. It seems like a well enough location to me.
And it's your opinion that the shelter and the church they're really supportive of it being a low barrier?
Yeah,
shelter?
absolutely.
And you're speaking on behalf of the operators of it?
I mean, I'm not speaking on behalf of the operators. I'm not an operator.
You just did speak on behalf of them. You said absolutely.
Well, sorry, I maybe misunderstood your question, but I thought you were asking me to comment on the nature of the church community, the congregation of which I am a part.
And how many of the church community actually live in the neighborhood?
I don't know exact demographics. There are better people who could maybe speak to that.
Are there people that are here that could speak to that?
Councillor, if the presenter is still speaking, we're going to let them finish their comment.
Appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. I mean, in my experience, I think people, live in Old Glenridge. People live in the other side of the train tracks, like where I do, even closer to the shelter. Some people live a little farther out in St. Catharines. I mean, it's a big church. People live wherever, but many people live in the neighborhood.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter, since you live in the neighborhood, do you find that most of the residents of the neighborhood are supportive of it?
I think some of my own neighbors occasionally seem to sort of scapegoat the shelter for every random thing that they see. They noticed somebody who appeared to be unhoused walking around, and they said, oh, that shelter, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Shelter is about bringing more people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness indoors.
I guess my next question, Mr. Mayor, the intent of the motion isn't to criticize the the shelter. It's more to have the region take some accountability, because there has been numerous times that the region's been approached about more appropriate sites that would be better, be able to provide better service, and no, there's been no action. So the whole idea of the motion is for the region to look at it, and if they are going to keep it in the south end of St. Catharines, perhaps have some rules and some accountability. I guess
Respectfully, if I may, what's your rationale for that? Is it simply that neighbors don't like to see people who are unhoused in their community?
Listen, I have no problem. My neighbors have no problem. I have a little bit of a history with this. I was the program director at the Canadian Mental Health and ran the drop-in. My parents had a group home that was run through Homes for Special Care, which was through Hamilton Psych, so I grew up with people with mental illness and stuff and addictions. So I have absolutely no problem, but I think there's a huge difference between enabling and empowering. And I think we're enabling quite a bit. So I'm just going to leave it with that.
Well, that's sort of a pretty broad statement to make. Could you clarify that a little bit more, what you mean?
No, I'm not going to clarify it. I'm going to let the motion stand.
Folks, I'm going to jump in. We're not going to have a back and forth. This is going to get contentious, and that is not the purpose of the presentations or the questioning.
Okay.
Councillor Harris, are we done?
I'm done.
Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Neufeld. I will try to ask you questions you're actually able to answer. I will say, as someone who lived in that neighborhood and probably closer to the shelter than anyone else around this table, I was always and remain in support of it. My question for you is, I guess, an academic one. Sure. The motion doesn't call for it replacing the capacity, saying, okay, if we're going to close this low barrier shelter overnight, we're going to let's request the region to open another one somewhere else. It just basically says to change it. Could you speak to, or perhaps speculate on what sort of impact that would have on people who use the shelter if it's changed without an adequate replacement?
Sure. So the exact, I think it's the second part of the request in the end of the motion there, suggests or requests that the key policy uses the language of dry, which, just to be clear, is not really a best practice language. That, I mean, literally, if we refer to a shelter that is low barrier as wet, that's a little bit misleading. It's not literally sloshing around with people's substances. We can use low barrier to indicate that there are fewer restrictions around people's behavior or substance use. We don't need to use sort of wet and dry language. But to speak to the actual question here, occasionally people, I think, and I've talked to folks who share this, who've said that, one of the challenges for people who may be unhoused, may have formerly struggled with substance use, is to feel that their only option when they're seeking emergency shelter is to enter into a space where there's a lot of people who are actively using or under the influence around them. This can be triggering and exclusionary for them. I think that is an important question and something to consider, but it's a very technical question to think about what number of people in the region are actually in that position, and sort of then by extension, what number of beds would we need to potentially reserve for people who are maybe in need of a little bit more segregated emergency shelter. And I think the largest shelter capacity in the region is not the place for that. That would be taking the largest chunk of beds out of the total capacity in the region and turning it into something that's much higher barrier than it was before. I think this is a big reason and rationale behind the region's original request that this shelter be made more inclusive. And I think it continues to be one of the strongest reasons to mitigate against moving back to that policy. I also think there are probably ways to work within the existing system to make things a little bit more inclusionary for people who find themselves in that position, who find, I'm having a hard time with my substance use, I'm in need of emergency shelter, I've got to be here, and this is hard for me. And I was even speaking with Doug Sider, as sort of the interim chaplain of the shelter today, and he was sharing about an experience with somebody who'd said they didn't want to go to the Southridge shelter because of that. And he was sort of just speculating me, I wonder if there's some way that we could just rearrange the sleeping arrangements or, the dorm rooms, so it would just a little bit easier for people. They wouldn't have to experience like that. I mean, it does sound to me, based on maybe some of the comments and maybe the spirit of the motion, a bit like the bigger rationale for requesting this change in policy is not so much in the interest of making it more inclusive for people who are maybe in recovery or not wanting to be triggered, but simply to exclude a certain kind of person from a neighborhood, which personally I think is not a good basis for policy.
And just, do you know, in terms of those intersecting challenges like being subjected to poverty and mental health and substance abuse, I mean, is it realistic to expect someone to need to be not using any substances in order to access help, or is that going to be more harmful in the end to make that a standard for just, providing shelter to someone?
Yeah. I think it's a tried and failed policy. I think it's something that has demonstrably harmful, effects for people. Nevertheless, it remains a sort of popular policy. It has a certain common sense to it. If we just punish people enough, maybe they'll change. There's lots of evidence that shows that that's not how that works. In fact, instead, you're more likely to exclude people, to exacerbate the risks and harms that they experience, and probably kill them. So I think wider doors, lower barrier policies are life-saving, they're evidence-based, and we should be proud that we have a shelter like this in our neighborhood. I know that I am.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Seeing no other questions or comments, thank you very much for the presentation. I'll now call upon Emily Spanton to speak.
Good evening, Mayor.
Ms. Spanton,
Good evening, Council.
Lectern is yours.
I will keep this as brief as possible. For those who don't know me, my name is Emily Spanton. I'm a resident of Port Dalhousie, but have spent more than a decade working in various social services in the downtown core of St. Catharines, including shelter system, food access programs, and harm reduction. I am a certified addictions counselor and further sit on a variety of lived experience and equity-seeking committees. But I'm here on my own behalf tonight, not in any official capacity, to be clear. The need for low-barrier shelters is increasing as the province continues to implement policies that directly affect our ability to provide supportive services. To force changes to the delivery model of St. Catharines' largest shelter, Niagara's largest shelter at that, would be catastrophic as we go into winter. People will die. It's that simple. I'm not trying to it's very clear. People will die. I want everyone to understand that. As we increasingly see seniors entering the emergency shelter system, I do see value in having a high barrier option for people. We have heard it, but in all of my 10 years in St. Catharines, I can count the number of people who have asked me for that service on both hands. I have lost 4 to 5 times that amount of people have died from not being able to access low barrier. So just to give people an idea, we're literally talking about a handful of people that this would help more than the existing system. Sorry, I lost my place. I don't like speaking in public. I get very nervous, so I apologize. So I don't see how blocking off a portion of our available beds better serves the community. We should be asking the region to invest in more options, not taking them away. And that is something we could be asking the region to look at, building, like we're still looking at changing our temporary emergency shelter into a permanent facility. What's to say we can't have a section of it devoted to a high barrier, or seniors even. I am very concerned about the increasing number of seniors we're seeing with housing insecurity, and with some of the provincial policies, I think that's going to increase. So nothing's saying we can't be proactive and look at other things, but I don't see how this particular change actually helps the citizens. We fought hard for these changes, many people did, and to just single-handedly change it just makes no sense to me. We don't have supportive or transitional housing or other supportive programs to the needs we have. They just don't exist. We need more spaces. If we had more supportive and transitional housing, that would also alleviate some of the need for the low barrier. But as it stands, we have no options for people. They don't just disappear when we don't give them a bed. They still exist. They're still in our city. They're still on our streets. They're in our parks, and they need help. So creating these barriers isn't helping anyone. It may sound great, and you may have one or two constituents who, and I do understand. I completely understand the frustration. We feel it as well. But I honestly, I'm a little shocked to hear that this is being even discussed. Our goal is to meet people where they are. And we can't do that if we can't find them because they have been denied access to a bed. How do we provide those supportive services? How do we provide the help that people want if we cannot find them because they are somewhere deep into the woods or wherever they have kind of been pushed out to? I would just kind of, one note I did really want to make, especially having heard some of the questions from counselors. I think it's really important that people understand that most of the people we're dealing with actually don't have an addiction. I would not actually diagnose them with an addiction. There's very specific criteria to have a substance use disorder. Most people are just using drugs. They're using drugs because they're on the streets, they're unhoused, their life sucks. And to be honest, if I was living in a tent, I might be using drugs too. I can't say that I wouldn't. And I think that's something we all need to think about. But to assume that if we just got people treatment or involuntary treatment, they don't need it. They don't have an addiction. What they need is mental health supports, they need housing, they need food, they need community. They need us to stand up and help hold them up as they're falling. I think that's starting to get, and I'm at 4.5 minutes. So I think that's my piece. I think I've said, kind of filled in some of the gaps. Thank you for hearing me. And I do hope that you consider some of these things before you make any decisions. I also don't think it's your call to make. The region makes these decisions based on public health, based on all these different pieces that come together. It isn't just some people in a room making decisions that affect people's health care, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about health care, whether that's mental health or physical. And I think that is something that people need to be mindful of. Okay, now I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Spanton. Are there any questions or comments for the presenter?
Thank you all.
All right, seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation. Can I have a councillor to move the motion to receive the delegations? Councillor Miller, Councillor Ratzlaff, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Up next is the motion. Moving this motion, I have Councillor Harris. Seconding the motion, I have Councillor Kushner. The motion will be put up on the screen. And I have speakers to the motion. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if it would be okay to refer this to the region, this motion, but with some changes included in it. I think Councillor Harris's point earlier, the region needs to step up and provide more supports, and I do agree with Councillor Harris on that, to see where things can be improved and where the region can assist the shelter in ensuring that whether it's more supports, more funding. I'm wondering if this is maybe, refer it back, or if you can bring this up to the region yourself.
So, Councillor, I would suggest actually it's not appropriate to refer this because the motion is simply making requests, and so it is in effect a referral. We are referring the concerns through this motion to the region for them to consider. If we're all being completely honest, we're not actually making a decision. It's council making that request.
Then I'm wondering if it's okay for Councillor Harris and Councillor Kushner to add in a clause here to call on the region to step up and provide additional supports, because I'm not seeing that in this motion. What I'm reading from this motion is let's somehow try to find ways to relocate this shelter. So I'm wondering if that's maybe we can add some language in, if that's friendly language to Councillor Kushner and Councillor Harris.
So could I suggest then that there'd be it further resolved that St. Catharines Council request the region of Niagara add additional funding for additional services to be delivered?
I think that would be the most appropriate, if that's seen as friendly.
It looks friendly from the mover, from the seconder?
Very friendly.
Very friendly, wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. So up next, I have Councillor McPherson as Orexie puts together that amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be supporting this motion. as it was mentioned by the speakers, Southridge has been around. There seems to be some misunderstandings around the word temporary. When it comes to homelessness services, the word temporary is not about the building, it's about the people in it. Ideally, the people are there for short periods of time. So I think there seems to be some confusion around the word temporary. I mean, Southridge opened up in 2005. It's been around for 20 years, and it has been providing short-term emergency shelter for people in crisis. That mission that they started with hasn't changed. It was never meant to be a pop-up or a pilot project. And I think the one thing to also keep in mind, in 2005, when this shelter opened and the region did a count of homelessness, folks experiencing homelessness, it was 131 people. That was the count. Today, that count, as of September 1st, is 1,264 across the region. And this isn't happening because shelters have changed. It's happening because the housing crisis is deepened and mental health and addiction services are overwhelmed. People are stuck. There's fewer and fewer places to go. And yet this motion is recommending that Southridge turn into a dry shelter or a high barrier shelter, which would require people to be sober in order to access that. And as the speakers mentioned, best practices, high barrier shelters, yes, there are a small group of people who, would be able to access a high barrier shelter. But the reality is that the people who are going to shelters are often in active addiction, they are in crisis, and they're just trying to survive. Southridge people are welcomed even when they are struggling. Staff walk with them, sometimes for months, while they wait for a spot in treatment, and that wait can be 100 days or more. During that time, when people are there, and while they may be using, while they are there, they are at least kept safe, they're kept connected, and they're given a chance to stabilize. I met an individual who was at Southridge. They chose to go to Southridge because they knew that at Southridge they were going to be able to use, but they also knew that they were going to be kept safe. That person has been sober now for over a year. He has said to me, without Southridge and the way that Southridge approaches care, he would not be alive today because he had already overdosed 30 times. So best practices, and I am not an expert in homelessness, I'm far from it, but everything that I have read, everything that I have been told by the experts, is that a high barrier shelter will not get people through the door. And it's already hard enough to get people to go to a shelter because there's multiple reasons why people won't go to shelters. The other part is we actually have no influence over shelters. Southbridge is an independent organization. It's just like the YW, it's like the Booth Center. The Niagara region provides funding, but they don't actually control how shelters operate. I'm not saying that how shelters operate can't be improved, but to say, the questioning of it being a temporary shelter, the idea of it becoming a high barrier shelter, it is, we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There are, if anybody has questions, as Dr. Neufeld said, you can go to Southridge and you can meet with the people. You have to see, it's not perfect, but go to any shelter and you're gonna see the same kinds of situations. And it's partly because there is nowhere for people to go. There are no places for people to go. Perhaps once the Heart Hub comes, there might be places for people to go during the day. But the reality is you need to make it possible to save lives. So I can't support a motion that builds more barriers between people, and I can't support a motion that pushes outdated models that have been proven by many, many people in many, many places that they do not work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Councillor Phillips.
Just a simple question, Mr. Mayor, whether you can answer this or David, or if there's someone in the gallery behind us. Does the region provide regular counseling at Southridge for the clients of people that they have there? Does anyone know, like, you know, is there someone coming a number of times a week to assist these unfortunate people who are experiencing these difficulties? Or are these people expected to go downtown or to agencies around there? Because it's such a large, as we've spoken, it's such a, you know, a large area, and I do feel that the region is dropping the ball by not providing more experience, more situations, whether it be in Welland or Niagara Falls. But anyways, answer to my question, please, if you know.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I do know, I can't speak on behalf of the region, but I do know they provide the funding supports to many service organizations, Southridge included. I believe that there are service offerings within the shelter facility, but that's sort of part of the, it's my understanding it's part of this, when they go out for proposals for groups to submit operating shelter spaces, it's part of that, and their funding is commensurate with the types of service offerings. I think some of the challenges, and again, I'm not, you know, by any stretch an expert in this, the challenge that the community is experiencing is, in some respect, the service agencies are either spread out through the community or in certain areas, and when individuals are, you know, trying to access services, it's not all in one facility location. So I don't really have the answer, but I do know that the region does fund those types of programs.
Obviously, it's, you know, it's a situation where a counselor should attend Southridge rather than having to expect these people to go to a place because they just don't have access necessarily to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got a couple more councillors. I'm going to make a suggestion, though. Not everybody has spoken, so if someone wishes to take me up on this, it might make sense to make a motion to defer and request that the Commissioner of Public Health and Social Services, well, the Commissioner of Social Services, attend a City Council meeting to be able to ask questions, because we've heard a bunch of questions. We've heard from members of the community raising points. I think a lot of members of Council have questions that frankly, nobody on the front bench can answer, nobody in the bullpen can answer. They are regional questions in nature. So I leave that out for council. If someone wishes to make that deferral motion with a request for Commissioner Koenig to come and speak, we can make that request. I will now go back to my speakers list. I have Councillor Miller.
Yeah, I'll leave it for someone else to defer. I do want to just probably, obviously, voting against this motion, I do kind of want to explain a bit why. You know, I think it's, again, as someone who actually has lived in this community, which I know one of the other councillors has as well, for most of the 20 years that the shelter's been operated, I don't feel there's widespread pushback to its existence or widespread pushback to its change from high barrier to low barrier. And in fact, I think if you did change it back to high barrier and you were turning people away because you deemed them to have been using substances, I think then you would start to get a lot of complaints from the neighborhood. And certainly, you know, my recollections of when it was a high barrier shelter, there were quite a few issues in the neighborhood with that as well. And of course, there's something ironic or hypocritical or elitist that, you know, as councillors, we're going to vote on this, and then we ourselves afterwards are going to go about 200 meters away from the shelter to a restaurant and use substances ourselves. So, you know, I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate jurisdictionally, and you know, there's certain councillors who complain a lot that we do things that are outside our jurisdiction, and this is certainly one of them. And to be clear, I don't even think it's appropriate for the regional government to be able to properly address this, because their funding model calls for that money to be raised by the property tax levy, and you know, that's unrealistic to address the problems of the magnitude we're seeing when it comes to poverty and homelessness and substance use and the mental health crisis. The region should be doing more. I think we've been clear about that. I think the mayor's been clear about that several times. We would love them to do more, and hopefully they will, but when we end up talking about this, it actually takes pressure off the people who should be addressing these issues, and that's in Toronto with Doug Ford's Conservative government, or in Ottawa with Mark Carney's Conservative government. That's small c. And I don't think it helps our residents, any of them, whether it's the people who own properties or those who don't, to take pressure off those levels of government to actually address these issues. So I don't think it's an appropriate conversation to be having. I don't actually, there's parts of this motion I don't really understand. It seems like the first therefore be resolved could be addressed with a phone call. So, I don't really see the need to have this conversation. I do think this conversation stigmatize people who use substances and experience homelessness, and that's just not something I can support. So, fully in support of that last part, that the region does more. Again, I think we've been pretty clear and on that issue and consistent, and I'd like to see that continue. But I can't support a harmful change in policy, especially without any alternative measures put in place. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through you, I don't have much to add to what Miller said and Councillor McPherson, but I will say that a helpful saying for me is that the opposite of addiction is connection. I had just a personal story. I had a friend who visited a low barrier shelter after being kind of rejected by his community and told to come back when he was sober, and he expressed to me that when he walked into that shelter, it was the first time he felt like he was fully accepted for who he was, because his struggles with addiction was something that would stay with him despite the fact that he'd been sober for years. And I think that if you're alone, it's very difficult to escape addiction. But if you're loved, you might have a chance. So thanks.
Councillor Mako.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate everyone sharing such personal stories here tonight. I do think we need some subject matter expertise. I'd like to defer to the Community Services Department or a future presentation at a City Council meeting with some expertise in this area.
All right, motion to defer is non-debatable. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. So the item has been deferred. We will try and set up a time for the Commissioner of Community Services to come and speak to Council. Moving on to 10.2, communications relating to 282-285 Ontario Street. Moving the motion, I have Councillor Ratzlaff. Seconding the motion, I have Councillor McPherson. Do I have any speakers to the motion? If we can put it up on the screen. And perhaps we'll all take a moment. We'll wait 2 or 3 minutes, let everybody read through this. And perhaps we could zoom it. There we go. Or actually try to remember the state of eyesight for many of us around the horseshoe. So as the mover, I'm going to let Councillor Ratzlaff go first. Okay, so I'm going to let Councillor Townsend, what's your request?
To go in camera, just to have a few questions about this, to discuss in camera about things that have been out in the media. Questions to staff.
Okay. We need a reason that is official under the Municipal Act. Would these be legal questions?
Correct.
All right.
A legal perspective, thank you.
Questions of our solicitor.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion to go in camera. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. In camera we go. Can I motion to receive the in-camera information? Councillor Dodge, Councillor McPherson, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Townsend, I believe you still had the floor. And I do not have a speakers list, so.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate staff providing some context, and I look forward to supporting the councillor's motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to declare conflict on this motion.
All right, so Councillor McPherson, are you the mover? Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Dodge? All right, so we are moving things around. Councillor McPherson is moving the motion. Councillor Dodge is seconding it. Any other speakers to the motion? It's, Councillor, I can't tell you one way or the other. It's your decision. Okay. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Stevens?
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff? Conflict. Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Mako?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Lindell?
I'm also going to declare a conflict.
Yes.
I can't hear you, I'm deaf.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson? Mayor's.
Too late perhaps to add a friendly amendment, but I would like to see the ministry report directly to council at some point. Okay, thank you.
Mayor
Yes, I'm in
Sisko?
favor.
Yes.
That's carried.
Yeah, Councillor, we'll take that as a direction, and I think the mayor and I, or sorry, the CAO and I, the CAO's office and the mayor's office will put something out over the course of the next couple of days on next steps. Any notices of motion for the next meeting?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Councillor Harris?
I believe Councillor Cush and I will be bringing something forward about New Hope Church and their water line.
All right, so we will have a motion at the next meeting about the water line at New Hope Church. Are there any report requests this evening? None? Can I have a mover to, oh, Councillor?
I would just like a report regarding looking into a partnership between the City of St. Catharines and the St. Lawrence Seaway Authority. They own a substantial quantity of land, quarter of land alongside the canal, with opportunities for tree planting and to improve our urban tree canopy. I'd be happy to get involved with it directly, and I know I'm sure my friends in Merritton and Grantham Ward, where the Seaway abuts those lands, would be interested in it as well. There has been incidents of some cutting on Seaway property, but my understanding it's necessary for operational reasons, but it's raised some concerns with people. So it'd be nice to find some opportunities to do some greening on their property, and we could perhaps develop some kind of a positive relationship with them on that front.
Okay, so that's our first report request. Councillor Phillips.
Could I add a bit to that, Councillor Williamson? Because I know with having talked with Seaway staff, because of the cutting they've done, they're going to be planting some trees elsewhere in Niagara. Rather than seeing as how they cut in St. Catharines, I would expect them to plant in St. Catharines. So ask our Director of Operations or Director of Recreation to identify some areas in St. Catharines that could be used for planting as well as where they cut down between Lock 1 and the entrance, but to include all of St. Catharines, just not that one area.
Okay. So we have some added context for that. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the request that Councillor Williamson has put forward. I was fortunate to speak with the Seaway today, and there are more cuttings coming to that St. Lawrence, to that parkway because of issues with the culverts. They have to, there's issue with the trees destroying it, but I can confirm that they have met with the MPCA and they will be planting more trees around St. Catharines, and they will be sharing a report to council in the coming weeks. So you will see signs up now where they're going to be cutting out certain sections, but it's in order to dig more ditches along there that need to happen to protect the canal way. So, yeah.
All right. And Councillor Harris.
I guess, can I just add to the notice of motion? Prior to us submitting the motion, perhaps we could meet with the CAO to discuss it, because I believe it kind of came to council once before. And I'd just like to get some clarification to see if it has to come back again.
You can definitely set a meeting with the CAO. I'm glad you interrupted
Thank
the
you.
report request to ask a question.
You're welcome.
You knew the answer to. Okay. Seeing no other report requests. Committee and task force minutes. Can I get a mover and a seconder to file the minutes? Councillor Lindell, Councillor Dodge, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And now I will look to the clerk to call the reasons for going into closed session for realsies.
Legal and Clerk Services, Legal Services, Ontario Land Tribunal Appeal, 37 Ontario Street and 3 Ontario Lane. Closed session pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, Section 239(2)E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And F, advice that's subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Legal and Clerk Services, Ontario Land Tribunal Appeal, 33 Locke Street. Municipal Act Section 239(2)E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And F, advice that's subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Mover and a seconder to go in camera. Councillor Dodge, Councillor Townsend, all those in favor? Opposed? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we're back. Motions arising from closed session. Up first, 15.1 Legal and Clerk Services, Legal Services. Excuse me. Ontario Land Tribunal Appeal 37 Ontario Street and 3 Ontario Lane. That staff proceed as directed in closed session. Moving this is Councillor Miller. Seconding it is Councillor Harris. And I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Mako?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
No.
Councillor Townsend?
No.
Councillor Stevens?
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff?
No.
Councillor Phillips? Councillor McPherson?
No.
Councillor Lindell?
No.
Councillor Kushner? No. Councillor Dodge?
No.
Mayor Cisco?
No. Motion to go back in camera.
Yeah.
No, seriously, we have
to
to.
go back
Councillor
in.
Lindell, Councillor Dodge, away we go. We're back again. So we have the motion to proceed as directed in camera. And I would still moved by Councillor Miller, still moved, or seconded by Councillor Harris, and I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Councillor Dodge,
No.
Councillor Williamson,
No.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
Councillor Stevens,
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff,
No.
Councillor Phillips,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
No.
Councillor Mako,
Yes.
Councillor Kushner, Councillor Lindell, not here, Mayor Cisco.
No.
That's carried.
15.2, 33 Lock Street. I have moving Councillor Harris, seconding Councillor Miller.
Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Lindell,
Yes.
Councillor Dodge,
No.
Councillor Williamson,
No.
Councillor McPherson,
No.
Councillor Phillips,
Nope.
Councillor Ratzlaff,
Yes.
Councillor Stevens,
Yes.
Councillor Townsend,
No.
Councillor Kushner, Councillor Mako,
No.
and Mayor Cisco.
No.
That is lost.
Back in camera we go. Mover and seconder. Mover and seconder. Councillor Dodge. Councillor Ratzlaff. here we are. So for item 15.2, 33 Lock Street, to proceed as directed with option 1, I have moving this Councilors Lindell and Harris. Councilor Stevens, I believe, is online.
Yeah.
All right, and I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Lindell.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Kushner.
No.
Counselor Dodge.
No.
Counselor McPherson.
Yes.
Counselor Mako.
No.
Counselor Miller. Counselor Phillips.
Yes.
Counselor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Counselor Stevens.
Yes.
Counselor Townsend.
No.
Counselor Williamson.
No.
Mayor Cisco.
No.
That's lost on a tie.
So for the second option, moving it is Councilor Williamson, seconding it is Councilor Mako.
Counselor Williamson.
Yes.
Counselor Mako.
Yes.
Counselor Dodge.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
No.
Counselor Kushner. Counselor Lindell.
No.
Counselor McPherson.
No.
Counselor Phillips. Yes. Counselor Ratzlaff.
No.
Counselor Stevens.
No.
Counselor Townsend.
Yes.
Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, can I get a mover and a seconder for the bylaws? Councilor McPherson, Councilor Dodge, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Motion to adjourn. All right, Councilor Lindell, Councilor Mako, all those in favor, opposed? There we go.